Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar podcast. I'm joined today by Tom and Cal. Guys, thanks so much for all your comments and all your kind of listens so far. Don't forget you can get in touch with us on @CookieJarGolf, and that's on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So guys, we've got a really exciting episode today. Someone we've been looking forward to getting on the pod for a few weeks now. It's going to be a cracker, I'm sure. He needs no introduction, but I will try. He's a multiple New York Times best-selling author. He's a professor of English at St. Joseph's University, all the way over in Philadelphia in the US. His adventures and some of his books have taken him on some incredibly wild rides, and we're going to talk about those in the pod. He's a regular contributor for the Golfers Journal. He's a host of their podcast. He's a voice on any number of golf publications and shows. He's a blogger, a raconteur, and he's an all-round top guy. Guys, it's Tom Coyne. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's nice to have something to do on a on this morning of this series of Groundhog Days. Every day the same. So thanks for giving me something to do.
And we're going to try and keep the C word banned as well. So we don't want to talk too much about the dreaded COVID. But yeah, I guess we're joined by Tom Mills and Cal as well today. So hi, Cal.
Hello.
Hi.
Gents.
So this all starts, I think, around Christmas time. My wife bought me a book, a course called Ireland, and a part of a Christmas present to go and play at Portmarnock. And I seem to remember being about 50 pages in, Tom, and kind of slid into your DMs, and I was in absolute raptures over the book, and you very kindly came straight back to me. And I guess kind of what would be really interesting is to kind of kick this off would be for you to tell us how you first got into golf. Where did it all start for you?
Yeah, so I started pretty young. My dad played at a club near us growing up, and so I started caddying there. I actually was pretty reluctant to start golfing. My brother was a good player, my older brother. So, you never want to do anything your brother's good at, like I want to do my own thing. And but they got me to go to a junior clinic, and I enjoyed that. But what really got me into it was caddying. By 12 years old, I was caddying. That was my summer thing. And it was great. I was caddying at the course where my dad belonged, so I could caddy in the morning and then go play all afternoon. Or if I was really lucky, I wouldn't get out to caddy, and then I could just play all day. So I was actually somewhat of a reluctant caddy. But that introduced me to a few things. It introduced me to golf. It introduced me to adults who were living, who had lives that you looked at and you thought, "Oh, okay, that seems like a pretty sweet deal." They play golf 5 days a week. How'd they do that? So I filed that away and thought, that'd be a good lifestyle. But it also introduced me to a lot of great stories, because the caddies that I grew up with, and I'm sure, caddies anywhere, are great storytellers. And there's a lot of great stories that they've witnessed on the golf course. And there's a lot of time that you sit around waiting to go caddy. So, that was just such a formative experience, both as a golfer and as a writer. My first book ends up being a novel about caddies. So I owe, in terms of my career, pretty much everything to the caddy yard. But yeah, I took to it. I got the bug pretty well, by 10, 11, 12 years old, and sort of stopped playing baseball and focused just on golf. I played football as well, but golf was, golf was from May to August every year, all day. The club was my summer camp. It's where my friends were. And I was, and it was a little bit of a different golf scene at that time. I'm around the same age as Tiger. That's the only thing we have in common, really. But, before Tiger, the junior golf scene was, you pretty much only played if your dad belonged to a club, and so it was sort of a more exclusive thing. So I guess the field of talent was a little more limited. It wasn't cool. Golf wasn't cool for kids yet. Tiger definitely did that. So, if you could break 80, you could get a college scholarship, or you could play
Wow.
in college. Certainly after Tiger, everything changes. Now these 14-year-olds that are breaking course records and stuff like that. So it wasn't quite like that. I was a 5 handicap in my club and was the junior club champion. So
Wow.
it's different now.
And you took that right through to college with you?
Yeah. So I went to college and but not to play golf. I tried out for my college golf team one year, and I'd like to think I was on the team for like a day. I had a good first day of tryouts and then flamed out in the second day, and that was okay because things went in a different direction. I wasn't not playing sports in school. I had the chance to write a ton, and really my junior and senior year in college started writing anywhere and everywhere, and sort of dedicated my life to that path. So I was an early comer to golf, but I was probably a late comer to committing myself to a writing life.
So, having just going to jump ahead a little bit here, but when I've reading Paper Tiger, you said that when you were trying out for Notre Dame that you had that lip out where you were flying through on your second round and you had that lip out and that was it. It all fell. The wheels came off. Do you think if you'd managed to maintain that round going, that perhaps your life would be in a different place now?
It's a really interesting question. Yeah, like the things that we look at in our lives as these huge setbacks and heartbreaking failures and defeats, and then you get enough time and perspective and you look back and you sort of see the things turned out exactly as they were supposed to, right? And yeah, I mean, I was playing well. We got on the clock. I hurried a putt, missed a really short putt, and it just freaked me out. And I had a hard time recovering from that. And if that hadn't happened, so what if I'd made the team, spent all this time, probably never playing in any tournaments, but spending college at that point becomes about, golf practice and trying to make a tournament squad. And instead, I started doing other things. And because of that, I mean, I was never going to make the, go from college to the tour. So the opportunity to really invest myself in my work has somehow come around full circle to where I've played all the golf I could ever dream of playing, not as a professional, not as a college golfer, but as a writer. And that's something I could have never predicted when I was in school.
Did that kind of turn of events where you kind of, I think everyone who plays a lot of junior golf has a realization at some point that it's probably playing the game is maybe never going to actually sort of pay the bills, and therefore did that kind of solidify your intent to go into writing? And then is that what then sort of struck the chord to say, do you know what, I actually want to write about golf, and that's why I'm going to go down this path?
Well, the golf writing was sort of an accident, because what happened is I was in graduate school doing a degree in creative writing, and I was in a fiction writing program, and I had to write a novel while I was there as my master's thesis to graduate. And I'd spent the first year of the program sort of failing and writing a lot of short stories and just not finding anything that was that I wanted to pursue more than 10 pages. And finally I started writing about a caddy and who was this golf prodigy. And within 4 months, I had a 400-page manuscript, and because that was a world that I knew, and so I wrote this story about a kid growing up at a golf club, and who was kind of the golfer I wished that I was, I guess,
Yeah.
and learning all these life lessons, and so I didn't go into my writing didn't start with the intention of writing about golf, but I wrote a golf novel. And it got published and it got made into a movie, and it was all incredibly exciting and happened very quickly. And so suddenly, I was in the golf writing world. That book allowed me to start writing for the magazines, and it put my book on the golf shelf in the bookstore and gave me a golf readership. And that was something that I was very fortunate to have, and that with the subsequent books that I've tried to keep building.
It's incredible, isn't it, when you think that, kind of that's your master's thesis, that then before you know it, it's gone into a feature film straight out the gate. Unbelievable.
Dude, it was insane. It was crazy. I was 25 years old, and I was it was my 25th birthday, and I got a call from my agent, which I felt like incredibly fortunate to get an agent right out of graduate school, and he called me and said, there's some producer who wants to talk to you. And I was going out to dinner. I remember I was going out to dinner with my parents for my 25th birthday, still living at home, or as we say, the ancestral estate. It sounds better than living with your parents. And he said, hang out. This guy wants to talk to you. It's like, yeah, I'll hang out. Mom and Dad, go ahead. I'm going to talk to this producer. And he called and said, what are you doing tomorrow? And I was like, nothing. What are you doing? He said, I'm flying out from LA, and we're going to tell you how I'm going to make this movie. So that was wild, because at that point, I didn't even know that producers or anyone even had access to the manuscript. It all happened, again, like I said, really quickly. And in fairness to him, he actually got it off the ground and got it made. It wasn't a huge budget picture, but
Gary Sinise there, right?
Gary Sinise was in it. Philip Baker Hall, Brian Doyle Murray, Mason Gamble played the prodigy, who was Dennis the Menace when he was a kid, and he was in Rushmore. He ended up being Michael Murphy in Golf in the Kingdom. Yeah, he's so super. So the cast was actually it was killer, and this whole thing started happening. It was incredibly surreal. It was filmed at the golf course I grew up on. It was some of it was filmed in my house. Some was filmed out in LA, but we used a lot of locations around Philadelphia. So it was very strange to have the story that I'd imagined taking place in these places in my imagination, like my own golf course or my own house, and then to actually see those characters come inhabit them 6 months later. That was nuts.
It's going to blow your mind.
So were you involved in sort of I don't know, running over the script, or
yeah, so I wrote the screenplay. Yeah, I got to adapt the
Awesome.
screenplay, which was fun, and I didn't know anything about how to do that. So the first draft I turned in was like a 6-hour movie.
Yeah.
And so we worked that down. And
just a bit longer than the Titanic.
Right, it was the golf epic saga. And I turned, and then but it was a great learning experience. And I got I was on set and was there to and was an extra often, and not because I wanted to be, because we so often didn't have people to be extras. So I'd go jump in a scene here and there, so you can spot me throughout the movie. And it was so it happening at the age of 25. I had very little perspective to appreciate how wonderful it was. There was this sort of idea that man, this is great. I can't wait till we do this next year with my next book. Not realizing if you get one book in your life made into a movie, you are way ahead of the curve. So it happened quickly. I hope it happens again, because it's a lot of fun, and it's a great medium. It's a very different sort of storytelling, but it's a very rewarding one for sure.
Unbelievable. Absolutely incredible story. And then you kind of moved out of fiction, where you'd kind of got some really quick early success and everything we've just talked about there. And then I noticed kind of the moving into nonfiction then really is your kind of style, right? Because then you're into sort of Paper Tiger and into the other stuff. So I suppose I'm really interested, as a big reader as well, kind of jumping out of fiction. How much is this then about going into almost being able to write nonfiction, and within that be able to set your own personal challenges outside of just the writing itself? Because I mean, Paper Tiger is a really interesting book, right?
It was definitely an adjustment, and it took a little bit of time. I mean, there were a few years in between where I was writing sort of failed novels, maybe trying to do Gentleman's Game again, or trying to get away from golf, and I didn't know if I wanted to just write golf books, or I was trained as a fiction writer, so I was like, I want to write another novel. But everything I kind of knew about life and the world was in some way in A Gentleman's Game. I was so young. That was my coming of age novel, and I didn't have another one bursting out of me. And so I thought, well, let's go live some life and have the experience to write about. Create the story. If you don't have, Ben Franklin said something like, if you don't have anything interesting to write about, do something, or well, he said it much more eloquently, but basically live an interesting life and write about that. And also, inspired by the books of like George Plimpton, who would go out and do this participatory sort of storytelling. Hunter Thompson did it as well. A lot of people did, in where you would go out and create these interesting experiences, and that becomes the narrative. So Paper Tiger grew out of that. Said, well, if I could just go live my golf dream, that would be a great story. And my golf dream would be to sort of play golf at the next level, to play golf at a professional level. And what would that entail? So it was a year of, I played golf 562 days in a row with a coach, strength trainer, sponsors, had everything the pros have. And what is that actually like? I don't want to ruin the end for anyone, but you'll notice I'm not on the PGA
Right
Tour.
now, that sounds like the absolute dream.
Right at this moment. But again,
Yeah.
the tour shut down, so who knows? Maybe I am, and just on a respite.
This is your moment.
Yeah. So, but it was a cool. No, it was going to nonfiction was a nice transition, because I think good nonfiction, creative nonfiction as we call it, should read like a novel. And you use the tools of the fiction writer. You develop characters, you create settings, you use vivid descriptions, you use specific detail, you capture good dialogue, you frame a story in a certain way to have a certain plot to it, and characters to have arcs and have narrative movement. And so all those things you're doing in fiction, we've all read great, nonfiction books that read like novels. I mean, In Cold Blood, when I read that, I felt like, man, I just want to write nonfiction, because to be able to craft a story that reads like a novel but that is actually true is I think a pretty special experience for a reader. So I transitioned into doing that. One of the perks of doing those kinds of books has been that with a novel, like, I had to write the whole thing. With nonfiction, as an author, you write a book proposal, and so I can throw out these ideas. Yeah, I want to go play pro. I want to go play all of Ireland. I want to go play all of Scotland, and write a 20-page proposal about that. And over the years, they've gotten shorter to where they've almost gotten. I'm fortunate that now it's more like an email. Hey, I'd like to do this next. And they say, hey, go for it, and you can actually get a little money up front to go and do it. So that's the bonus of doing a nonfiction project versus a novel,
Another
where
dream.
you might spend 3 years working on your opus only to find out that it doesn't work.
When I when I read through Paper Tiger, there was a question that was playing on my mind, and then subsequently looking at what happens in A Course Called Ireland and A Course Called Scotland. I'm dying to know, as a man who really struggles to convince his missus to let him out for 4 hours to play golf, how did you manage to convince your girlfriend, now wife, that spending a year away playing golf how was that ever allowed? What's your secret?
It's, well, I'd like to share the secret with you, but it's been so hard earned, and it's not safe for everybody. No, it's really just a matter of expectations, my friend. It's where was your starting point? So going into our relationship, Allison obviously understands that golf is pretty central to my life, but I'm not unique in that way. We're all golfers. But it was kind of a matter of like, where did you set the bar? So in doing Paper Tiger, I was away for 500 something days golfing. And at that point, we're, boyfriend, girlfriend. Then, I'm going to go do Ireland. And, at that point, we're married. And now it's like, well, how long is that going to take? it's only going to take 4 months. Remember Paper
Good Lord.
Tiger? That took 18 months. It's like, oh my gosh, only 4 months. You're the best,
It's an improvement.
right? You know, it's like, where do you set the bad husband bar? You got to set it really high. And so I'd set it very high in Paper Tiger, and so the trips have gotten shorter because then we get to Scotland and it's 2 months. And again, I'm a saint because I'm not going to be away as long as Ireland. The tricky thing was, though, that when we got to the most recent book, when I did America, and that was going to be 8 months on the road. That was challenging, but thankfully by that point, I think the other books had been successful enough where it was something that, you know, she understood that I needed to do, that we needed to do, and so yeah, there's no small. Definitely the fact that it's my job helps the argument.
Exactly.
But trust me, there's definitely started talking about fiction at the beginning, and I'm pretty sure I'll be taking a turn back to fiction with the next one because I can write it from my office.
That's why we've dialed into golf podcasting, so we can say it's our job now, and we can all spend more time on the golf course talking about golf.
You're doing it for the kids, man. It's what you got to do.
It's a cause.
Absolutely.
It's a cause.
We've sort of touched on Scotland and Ireland there. So where did the love for links golf come from? Why Ireland? Why Scotland? And is it, I guess, the history, or I don't know, the course architecture there is so much different to sort of Parkland golf and maybe typical golf in the States?
Right, it's so much different than what we have here, and it really just happened on my first trip to Ireland. As you guys can see me on this, I'm very obviously of Irish descent, meaning to say I'm a large ginger. So we would go over to sort of look for the gravestones of our relatives and whatnot. And the first time I played a links course in Ireland, I just immediately fell in love with it. It was a different sport than what I had played at home. It was a different game, and it was something that just felt so authentic and wonderful, and I felt a sort of nostalgia for it even as I was playing it. You know, just the sense of like that I was playing something very old and ancient and pure, and so, and I just love that style of play too. You know, it's just so creative and imaginative, playing golf along the ground and having all these sorts of different options, and
You got a battle with Mother Nature and
all that. You know, it was just a full experience. The experience was so big and full, and it involved the golf, it involved the lunch, it involved the pints, it involved the town. You know, where so many courses were just tied into the community. And that was very different from sort of the private club world that I'd grown up in. And so it just felt like two different pastimes. And I just really loved everything about it. And we kept going back more and more. And then I started learning more about the history of the clubs and history of links golf. So it became even more interesting to me at that point. But, you know, it's just something we don't have over here. We have links style courses. We do have some maybe courses that would qualify as pure links. But for me, I mean, links courses come from the British Isles. That's just where it started, and that's just where they are, and your geography. So you have genuine, true links land that's formed by this strange, you know, geological phenomenon, you know, that creates these long, huge dunelands that we don't necessarily have over here. Strangely, we actually have some like in the middle of America, which is weird. Just for whenever the oceans were in different places than they are now, like in the middle of Nebraska has this huge sand deposit. Wisconsin does as well, and they've built some like links courses there, but you're landlocked, so it doesn't quite feel like you're, you know, at Hoy Lake or whatever. But folks can read all about that in a course called America, coming out in 2021 from Avid Reader Press.
And it's kind of, I mean, I guess we forget a lot of the time how blessed we are in the UK to have that kind of access.
Lucky.
So We are, aren't we? And you know,
Yeah.
we'll come on to it in a bit, talking about the differences, I think, between the game and the UK and the States and everything. But there's a huge level of access to that. And I kind of read Ireland and then read Scotland, and the two challenges were very, very different, right? So, you
Yeah.
know, for the benefit of our listeners, a course called Ireland, you walk the entire perimeter of Ireland, you walk the entire coastline, Northern and Republic, and played the entire country as a basically one golf course, right?
I did. Yeah.
And
So it was,
yeah.
the challenge was, I looked at a map of Ireland planning a trip for my friends, and it just, the map, if you look at a golf map of Ireland, it's like, okay, it's ringed by all these golf courses, right? All these links, these seaside courses, which we don't have in America, and that's what we want to come over and play. And it was sort of like, well, where should we go? The Southwest, go up north, Southeast, Northeast, whatever. And the more I looked at it, I just thought, this looks like one giant golf course. So let's just play it as a big golf course. And so that's what I decided. That's what I proposed I would do. And when you play golf in Ireland, you don't take a cart. So if I was going to play Ireland as one giant golf course, I would walk the whole way. And that's what I proposed to my publisher. And, you throw these things out there, and then sometimes they say yes. And then you go, shit, I got to do it. So that was something. And so a lot of planning went into that. A lot of planning went into to the itinerary around Scotland as well. But the great thing about Ireland, I mean, it definitely started, the walking pretty much started as kind of a gimmick. Like, the challenge there is, can I survive this? Like, can I physically do it? Right. And what that became was the most important part of the story, in terms of, it made me go to places where other people didn't go. It made me play courses that other people didn't bother with. It made me stop in towns where people didn't stop, because I had a 20-mile leash on me every day. So I just was taking Ireland in these slow chunks. And I think that let me get to know Ireland in a pretty intimate way, with maybe a perspective that not every sort of golf travel story gets. That was the idea anyway, and I hope that came through in the story. And it also allowed me to discover just these out of the way 9-holers, or places that we definitely had skipped on any previous trips. Where if you were going to Ireland for 10 days, you're going to play these 10 bucket list courses. Well, I was playing stuff that wasn't on anyone's bucket list. And now what's been great is there's been a few places that I think have gotten on more people's bucket lists because of the book. And that's been incredibly,
Definitely.
incredibly meaningful to see, some of what's happened to people that helped discover Carn out in the west of Ireland, and Crutch Island and Ardglass. Any small part I played in helping get them more visitors has been just incredibly gratifying.
But it's so exciting when you find these hidden gems. And certainly, the three guys you're talking to now, Tom, are huge fans of that. I think there's a lot to be said for the, kind of huge tier 1 venues that host major championships. But there's nothing better than coming away from kind of one of those hidden gems that's just, really authentic, really rugged, kind of something that you just weren't expecting. You pull up, you have literally very little expectations when you get to the car park, or in your case, walking up towards it. And there's just no better feeling, right? And there's some incredible courses out in Ireland. And, certainly within the UK, I think we undervalue Ireland, because naturally there's a lot of kind of emphasis around golf in Scotland and the heritage that goes with that. But Ireland, there is just a ridiculous amount of depth, right, in terms of the courses. And the people are great. Like some of the stories in that book, it's amazing. You see the kindness of strangers and the people in the company you fall into on a kind of seemingly nightly basis, right?
Oh, it's the people make it, for sure. The hospitality is, in the book I talk about them as like only in Ireland moments, and it's those moments where you're lost, and not only does the guy give you directions, but he jumps in his car and like drives you there a half hour away, stuff like that. And that's what happens over there. That kind of that treatment, or a treatment of visitors, but then that genuine interest in them as well. And folks wanting to know why you're there, and share their country with you. That's all just, it's just phenomenal. And you're right, that finding that those courses that we don't know about, or that fly under the radar, I mean, that's really what I'm after in all the books. Scotland, Ireland, America, because you can only write so much about St. Andrews. and I write enough about it, and it is one of my favorite places in the world. But I don't need to tell people that, right? I'm not. It's not a big scoop. I'm out for, these little 9-holers or these sort of lost links up in the Highlands that people don't get to, and to show why they're so special. And it's harder to do anymore. I mean, there's a lot of people that there's a lot more wanderers than there used to be, and thanks to the way the golf media landscape has changed with video blogs and podcasts, and there's other people finding places as well. So it's harder and harder to find a course no one's heard of. But once in a while you come across one, and that's that really makes it feel, you're like, now not only personally do I feel like I'm the only person who's ever been here, which feels incredibly cool, I'm doing a service to my readers as well, because now I'm sharing something with them that they wouldn't have known otherwise, and that feels
and it comes through, doesn't it? I think, Tom, it comes through in the book. So I mean, kind of when you look at Scotland, you see the mirror image almost of that, because you've got, certainly the sense I got when you were up in the Highlands and you're coming back down through places like Machrihanish, and playing places like Shiskin and Askanish and stuff, like you can just tell, like it's coming through the paper at you. And that's not the, clearly some of these kind of more staid, kind of tier 1 courses are not exciting. It's just kind of, I think it's the separation in the expectation level and actually what the course delivers. When you go to places like Brora or Askanish or Shiskin or whatever, you're just blown away, right?
Yeah, it's all about where your expectation level is. I went into Turnberry expecting, and this was before they did their remodel, expecting Dornoch, or it's Turnberry, so it's got to be Turnberry great. And I don't know what that means. It just means it, because I haven't been there, but it just means it's got to be awesome, right? And it was really good. But it, if I had no expectations about the place, I would have felt completely differently about it. Now, whereas I go into a place like Brora, or go up to Durness or something like that, I have no expectations, or up to Wick, I'm just trying to find it. And if there's actually a flag in the ground somewhere, I'll be psyched. And then you get out there and it's really good. And then you find a couple holes that are like, this is insanely good. And so that's where the real excitement comes from. You had no expectation going into it. So that's what I always tell people, like the things to leave at home is, usually your umbrella, because they don't do very well in the wind. And then and try and leave your expectations at home as well, especially if you've never played links golf, because over here we still have very much like golf as a garden experience, where everything is meticulous, and we judge a course's quality by how the lines and the fairways look, and how there wouldn't be a stone or a blade of grass out of place, and how nice the flower beds look and stuff like that. I think we're definitely getting away from that, but was the case for a long time. So you get then folks come over to North Berwick, and they're looking around and they're like, what the heck? Or you could even look at the old course and be like, what? It looks like a field. And so you have to, if you go into it thinking like, oh, I hope I expect this perfectly meticulous, maintained golf experience, you're going to ruin the whole thing. So you got to appreciate why it's different.
Yeah. And
I think ultimately, if you're going to go find some hidden gems, you've got to be willing to play some average courses, because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. You might find some great courses, but you might be bored for a few hours as you walk around. But I think you've got to put yourself up there.
Don't be afraid of the honesty box.
That's a really good point. I mean, yeah. And that's the funny, like, as a golf critic, I probably have gotten better about ways to sort of judge or gauge a course's quality, but I'm a soft grader, man, as we would say over here. I'm a professor as well, and they might accuse me of being a soft grader, and that with my students as well. If it's golf, I'm just inclined to like it. If I'm getting my cuts in, and there's enough room to swing a driver and have a putt for birdie, like, I'm generally, like, my happiness level is pretty solid. it has plenty of room to go upward, but you'll probably notice in my books, like it's pretty rare that I'll lay into a course. In fact, I don't know if I ever really do. And if I would be inclined to, I just probably wouldn't write about it. Because it's like pizza, man. Even when it's bad, it's still good. I'm like, I feel like it's I'm okay with taking a chance on and in these books I rarely have the chance to say no otherwise, because if there's a course in front of me, I'm going to play it. But I'm fine with playing something that's sort of modest and kind of plain. And in that case, I'm just looking for that standout hole, or to write about the people that I'm with, or the context of the course. And so there's always something positive to take away from any round of golf, as we all know, and sort of that's, I guess, where my sensibilities lie.
I guess on that note, I guess what's your golf life at home? Is your club sort of nearby? Are you playing once a week or every Saturday? Are you playing competition golf?
So my club is nearby. I played there once last year because I was touring America, doing the new America book. So those were some fun bills to pay. So that $8,000 round was great. It's tough, when you're not using it. And on a typical year, I would definitely be there a couple days a week, and on the weekend as well. Play early. It's 5 minutes from my home. I should say it's got, my wife uses it more than I do, and my kids too. The big tennis program. Like, it's all, over here, it's all sort of a country club situation where the clubs that, obviously your top tier courses, can just Pine Valley, Chicago Golf, whatever, they can just be golf, and Marion will always have members. But as golf has, the golf landscape is changed, clubs here are definitely focused more on becoming full service and family clubs. So you got to have the swimming for the kids, you got to have the tennis, you got to have the paddle sports, you got to have a gym, you got to have golf. So it's if you've got the full package, that's kind of what people are looking for. So we have that. So my family uses it a lot, even if I'm out on the road too often. Of course, we're not doing anything there right now because golf is banned.
Sadly.
Sadly, but it's like bittersweet. We can go walk the course for exercise. They allowed us to do that. But if we're out there with a club, we will be fined and shamed. So
have you got away?
To be fair, the fine can't be more expensive than your fees, so you might as well just go for it.
That's what some guys are figuring they're going to do. But then you don't want to get kicked out, because then when golf does come back, oh God, I can't wait for that. But
that's just such a different model, though, isn't it? So, I guess I'm really interested to kind of get your views as, I guess, partly an American abroad over in the UK, and then the differences in the game. I've not played a huge amount of golf in America. We went out with a few pals last April, and kind of know from contacts and talking a bit, there's a huge difference right in the game between the US and the UK and other parts of the world. How do you kind of see those two sort of playing out long term, and what are they?
Honestly, I think what you guys do is I wish we did it more like golf in the UK and in Ireland. There's a lot, I think, for American clubs to learn and American courses to learn. In terms of, there's a lot. So I would just start with that your courses are visitor friendly, that there are tee times available for people to come and pay and play your course. And sometimes they're limited and sometimes they're not. And that just makes sense to me. It brings money to your bottom line at your clubs. It helps keep your dues lower. So I appreciate that. I acknowledge, and it also, it's, it shares the game with other people. It's in the spirit of like, come enjoy my course, versus like our model is, if we can keep you off it, that means we're great. If we can keep people like at a distance wanting to play it, the more people that want to play it and can't, the better our course is. Like, I don't know, just strikes me as strange. It made sense until I got over to Ireland and the UK and could go play all these courses, and then I could actually say they're great because I actually saw them and enjoyed them. So that's a big part of it. I like that you can have dogs on your courses. We really need to do that. That's huge. Maybe not all your courses, but I saw a lot in Scotland. And that the cost of belonging to a club wasn't cost prohibitive, so that golf doesn't become a class thing. The initiations at a good Philadelphia golf club would be $50,000, and then your annual just that's to walk in the door. So those are coming down as clubs struggle, but but they're also a lot higher at other places. So say you got to pay that, and then you got to pay $10,000 a year in dues and fees to play the same place, which appeals to some people and doesn't appeal to others. It's fine. I think millennials are definitely not into that idea. They want to do different things and go have a different experiences, and so that's a challenge for golf. So point being, if I can belong to a course in Ireland or Scotland for $500, $1,000 a year, whatever, that takes the sort of elitist element out of the game, and I think that's important. And I don't know how you and there's ways that you keep your costs down, not having these huge opulent clubhouses, not having 4-course dinner services, not having having smaller greens crews, and people accepting that your greens don't always have to run at 13. They don't, and your course doesn't have to be in perfect nick all the time, right? It's supposed to be played in a natural setting, and we put so much money, so many chemicals, so much input, so much stuff into our courses that sometimes they don't even feel natural. They're so manicured. So it would have to take a big shift in how Americans look at the game, think of the game, aspire, this sort of aspirational mode. We want to belong somewhere nicer and somewhere more exclusive. It's very it's a very American thing, and it just drives up the cost of the whole thing, and it sucks. So that's why I love another one of the reasons, not just links golf, but just the attitude and approach that I'll go play a course in Ireland or Scotland. I'll have a great time with my caddy, and then we'll go inside and have lunch because he's a member, right? The idea that a caddy would be a member of the clubs around Philadelphia or New York or Chicago,
it's not
is
true.
absolutely absurd. Would never happen.
It's huge when you put it in those terms. When you start thinking, your usual country club, $50,000, kind of entrance fee, as we would call it. There's a very few handful of clubs in the UK in totality that would be asking for that, and they're your kind of Castle Stewarts, your Loch Lomans of the world. They're very few, and it just shows. Do you feel that's a massive barrier? I mean, I guess we've all enjoyed golf from a very young age here. We've all spent kind of long summers, playing golf for very little money and just kind of enjoying being out with our friends and stuff. Does that feel like it's kind of prohibitive for people now over in the States in terms of getting into the game? Is it putting up barriers, or are people just finding different ways to get around it? And is the market kind of providing different options now?
The market is providing different options, to be fair. That is changing. Like I said, I'm probably coming from the perspective of when I grew up, to really play a lot of golf and to have access to a practice and a range, blah, blah, blah. Like you had to belong to one of these country clubs, right? Or your dad did. So that is changing. I mean, we've got initiatives with the first tee over here to get more kids into the game. The thing that's changing in the wrong direction is caddy programs are struggling, and that's, I think, where people really do that's how you get young people into the game. I think the golf scene, like I said, places like Sweetens Cove in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, which certainly you guys have heard of. This 9-holer that is super accessible and has a great relaxed vibe about it, and is just incredibly interesting quality architecture. Places like that, places like Winter Park in Orlando, which is another community 9-holer. Those are places that are opening people's eyes and saying, and there's a place called Common Ground in Colorado and Denver, Skyway in New York. So there are places where that's changing over here, where we're getting good golf courses for the community. They can play cheaply, and that's a positive development. We need a lot more of it. but we'll see. Hopefully things will continue to go that direction, because like I said, the 20 and 30-year-olds here they're not interested in joining clubs just to wear the sweater with the fancy logo on it. Like, that's not that appealing anymore to that generation. They want to do different things and go to cool places, and they want to go to Sweetens Cove, and they want to go to Bandon Dunes, and they want to go play Scotland. They don't want to just belong to the fancy Philadelphia Country Club to say that they do. That's less appealing. So clubs are going to have to figure it out.
The way people are consuming golf is without doubt changing, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
The whole thing just seems to be changing, rapidly. So
it is. We're consuming it
Just
through these podcasts. We're consuming it in incredible publications like the Golfer's Journal.
Another plug.
Plug. We're consuming it in great golf books.
It is good.
Thank you. But we're consuming it online. We're consuming it through Twitter. We're consuming it through chat rooms. We're considering it through, webisodes. There's all these sort of different platforms that I think are bringing a lot of young people to the game, which is great. But they're bringing it to them in a different way, and it's not in the like, ooh, okay, so I enjoyed that season of no laying ups tourist sauce, so now I'm going to go join a country club. It's, oh, you know what? I want to go play that public golf course they found, and I'm going to take my 10 buddies down there. We're going to go stay in the Holiday Inn, and we're going to have a blast. So, the landscape's changing, and that's what I found as I traveled around America. The landscape really is changing, and it's exciting. If you just looked at like hard numbers and said, okay, what's going on with country club memberships, and you use that as the metric for the health of golf in America, you'd say, okay, things aren't so good. But man, I met like so many young people who subscribed to the Golfer's Journal, had no laying up towels on their bag, had Seamus head covers, great company out of Oregon, who have all this bespoke equipment, right? And they're playing at public courses, they're playing at munis, and they're playing with like 50 guys on a Saturday, and it's really vibrant and it's really cool. It's not what his generation was doing, but it's really cool and healthy, and it's healthy in terms of the state of the game. So you just have to, I think, look in different places and look at golf in different ways to see that there's some really exciting stuff going on.
Especially so from the UK, certainly from our perspective out in the US, I think Zach Blair's a big part of that, isn't he, with the Buck Club as well, and feeding into obviously yourself and the no laying up guys. And
yeah, I mean, Eric Anderslang is doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Zach is just an awesome dude who is really killed it with social media, and is probably the model for like a professional golfer cultivating an audience. He's got a lot of interesting endeavors going on. I mean, Max Homa is doing awesome stuff online too. So, and they are. It's funny, like we're not even playing golf right now, but people are still tuning in to see like what Max Homa is saying, and that's it's pretty cool.
Have you sent him your swing yet?
I have not sent my swing. I played a fair amount of golf with his podcast partner Shane Bacon, who could share. I could ask him to share. No, I don't want to be torn up on Twitter. It's tough enough playing with Shane.
Public execution by Max online. No, thank you.
Right? No.
But you mentioned earlier on that you obviously spent 8 months going around America. A lot of your non-fiction books so far come with goals. I mean, Paper Tiger was you wanted to go through Q School, and Ireland was just to get around Ireland. Scotland, obviously, to try and get an open qualifier. What can you tell us about the course called America in terms of is it goal orientated? Are you thinking about, is it just a case of playing as many courses as you can? What's the premise of the book, and what sort of goals do you have attached to it?
Yeah, the story has to have a goal, right? I mean, it has to have a third act. It's got to have a movement towards some sort of, at least for me, some sort of promise or bargain I've made with myself about what I'm after, and that drives it drives everything. It drives the narrative in the book, but it drives the planning process. It drives the travel. It keeps me moving, so I have to be after something. I wouldn't do terribly well kind of sort of wandering and just cataloging course after course after course, which I guess some guidebooks would do, but these are sort of, again, like I try to write them like novels. So in the America book, I think of it as the search for the great American golf course, and that brings up two questions, right? What makes a golf course great, and what makes a golf course American? What does American mean in 2019? Those are two really important questions for me, and the American question is the bigger of the two, to be honest. It's a really interesting, in case you haven't noticed, it's a pretty interesting time over here. Same for you guys.
Yeah.
So trying to understand and make sense of a very divided country, very red, very versus blue kind of place, and trying to put all those pieces together rather than sit on the couch in Philadelphia, one of these East Coast cities, East Coast blue cities, and say like, okay, I know what life is like in Mississippi or New Mexico or Arizona. That I actually go and investigate it and go learn my own country and do it through golf, which is always the golf course being this sort of space of accord, where I can generally get along with anybody and listen to their lives and not try and assume I understand what they think and who they are, or understand why they think things, to actually go and play 18 holes with them. So for me, it was, I know Ireland. I felt like I knew Ireland and Scotland well. And then I thought about it. I'm like, I know Ireland and Scotland better than I know my own country. And it was time to do something, I thought, about that. And so I went out and played. I finished in December, the golf portion, on the road for 8 months, played all 50 states, played about 300 courses. And I think I did identify the great American golf course. But you're going to have to buy the book to find out.
He's not going to give us any secrets, but I bet it opened up some obscene breadth in the country in terms of the game, right? Because those places you just reeled off, they're just like chalk and cheese between states, right? So
it's like, it's so fast. I mean, I knew America was bigger than geographically bigger than Scotland or Ireland. I understood that conceptually, but man, there's so many.
You didn't fancy walking the perimeter of America?
No, didn't do it. I did walk the golf courses, and that was plenty. But there's so many countries within this country that it was really fascinating. I was very much in America as an American. I was a stranger in a strange land 90% of the time, whenever I was outside of, my bubble in Philadelphia. So that was pretty cool. But then I wasn't a stranger because all these wonderful people would come out and meet me and play golf with me. And, thanks to sort of social media and all that. So, this bond of golf brought all these strangers together. Obviously I learned that we have more in common than we have that separates us, but I learned a lot about people. And it sort of changed my views and expectations of people, I think, in a very positive way. And I definitely came out of it feeling a lot better about the state of our country. I mean, you sit around and watch the news and you think, and this is before the virus, but you'd sit around and watch the news and think like, we're going to hell in a handbasket. And then you actually get out there and you realize, regardless of how they vote or what they think politically, like people are good. And that, that was good to rediscover that.
Was there a standout course for sort of all-round experience and that just sort of blew you away?
A standout course?
Just a great experience.
Yeah.
It's just
I mean, fantastic. God, I feel like I played them every day. An experience that I'll never forget is playing Shinnecock and National Golf Links in the same day.
Wow, yeah.
That was a good one. And getting to play it with Jimmy Dunn, who is a person folks might know over here, but just an incredibly generous, wonderful person who he's not a professional golfer and he's not an agent or anything, but he's really connected to the whole golf world and golf scene. He's the president at Seminole, belongs to every golf course you'd ever want to belong to.
Wow.
And it's just, but not It's just the most down to earth guy, and just that was a super super special day. It's a big part of the book. But then there were experiences of playing, you know, gosh, I'm writing about them right now. Playing the Dunes Club up in Michigan. Mike Kaiser's first little 9-holer just blew me away, and finding a 9-holer in the middle of Indiana that kind of people had forgotten about as a Langford Moreau, and that just being, there were all these discoveries everywhere, and there were so many recommendations and invitations, and there were so many chances also to get to understand, like, to get to play all these Seth Rayner courses, all these C.B. McDonald courses, all these Tillinghast courses, to get to understand architecture differently. That was pretty rewarding as well. But hey, playing Cyprus, that was cool.
That was a cool day, right?
Yeah, it was a good day. That was a good day. Yeah.
I mean, it's just the stuff that comes out. Just every day at work's a good day, right? It just pinches himself.
It wasn't. It beat digging ditches. I'll tell you that much.
Just kind of building on what Carl said. So, we've obviously encountered a lot of Americans that come to play golf in the UK, and you always ask about the itinerary, and what you usually get is the kind of, back to that point of the tier 1 courses. You get the open venues, you get the kind of big ticket courses. And if you asked English or UK or Brits guys going over to the States to play golf, you would probably see them gravitate towards one of a few places. They'd want to go and play golf out in the Monterey Peninsula. Florida, for a normal club golfer, is a hugely popular place to go and spend time playing golf. What are the kind of places, if you had if you could put people in a plane to one destination to go and golf their little hearts out for a week in America, where would it be? Obviously,
really good question. Really good question, because there was a time, where I'd get like an email from an Irish friend say, "Hey, we're coming over for 2 weeks, and we want to play. So can you help us play X, Y, and Z? Like, can we play? We'd love to play hit Pine Valley, then we'll do Marion, and then we'll do Oakmont in the afternoon." And it's like, whoa, time out, man. All right, first of all, you're not playing any of those, and just because Marion and Oakmont are in the same state, they're 6 hours apart. Big country, man. This isn't, County Mayo. So it was always, you'd have to squash their dreams, because you can't, because they're all private, right? So like, where are you going to go if you're coming over here and you want to play great golf? You can't play all these US Open courses, right? So there's a few places I would point people, like, where you can play US Open courses. If you go to Monterey and play Pebble Beach, and you can play some of those courses, you'll spend a ton of money, but it'll be a great experience. You can play some great golf. You can go down to San Diego and play Torrey Pines. That's very good. And you can play Bethpage Black. That's public. But then what else are you going to do in New York? You're probably not going to go get on Maidstone and Shinnecock and stuff like that. So where I like to point people is Wisconsin. You'll have to go in the summertime. Gets kind of cold there. But between what Mike Kaiser's done at Sand Valley, where there are 2 awesome courses right now, a Core Crenshaw, a David McClay Kid, which is such a blast, and then they have a Doak course opening up. So you've got Sand Valley, great spot. Then it's like a little triangle. You do that, and then you do Lasonia, which is a Langford Moreau, 2 courses there. And it's an absolute blast. Andy Johnson of the Fried Egg has really put Lasonia on the map, and I love that place. And then you go down and you do Erin Hills, US Open course. Yep. Got a bad rap in the Open, a very unfair one. First they said it was going to be too hard, and then it was too easy because Brooks Koepka won. And who's Brooks Koepka, right? It's funny, if that would have been his 4th major instead of his first, everyone said, "Oh, Erin Hills identifies the greatest champions in golf." Instead they were like, "Oh, it's just some bomber one." So that got a very unfair bad rap. That place is an absolute blast. And then there are a few, some other fill-ins you can do around Wisconsin as well. And then there's Whistling Straits too. That whole complex. So Wisconsin is a great trip. You can fly into Chicago direct and then just wander your way up. Of course, Pinehurst, it's tough to beat. You English folks like to migrate down to Florida, I know. And it's funny.
Just desperate for a bit of sun.
I know, I understand. And it's funny that you'll wander over there in the summertime when none of us will play. We'll go there because it's 150 degrees. But it's all good. And if you do that, great value. Go down to Stream Song, right in the middle of the state.
Great.
You know, that's a good one. I know that's definitely popular with English golfers in the summer. I would recommend the winter though. It's a little more fun.
I mean, we were due to be, which sadly got cancelled because of everything going on. But we have an annual trip out to Atlanta, play sort of Atlanta Athletic Club, which we're fortunate to play, and Peachtree, and even and then we sort of just on down to South Carolina. So we play in a tournament at Palmetto down there, which is it's just great fun. That's
Palmetto's best, and Peachtree
in terms of exactly. So
Peachtree's so good.
It's scary, isn't it? It's scary.
So good.
Was I think the fastest greens I've ever played on.
Yeah.
It yeah.
I'm going for the first time in 2 weeks. I'm very excited.
Are you going for the first time in 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks, yeah. I'm really excited. I can't wait.
You have the whole plane to yourself, and just don't get arrested on the golf course. You'll be fine.
Palmetto, though, just an absolute blast, isn't it?
It's like, you know, if it's a more intimate Augusta National. Just has that kind of vibe, even kind of the look of it, and it's just so fun. And we had, and it's so cool there that they do open up Masters Week, you know, because it's relatively close to Augusta, so that's the week that the members can't play it, and it's public only, and it's, you know, $300 for a tee time, so they're just cranking like all week on visitors, and I think like they make their whole budget in a week.
And that's so many guys. Journalists down there. You were there, I believe, weren't you? Down Masters Week last year. I saw Eric Anders Lang. He was down there. Like, there's so many sort of bloggers and people in the golf world playing Palmetto that week.
Absolutely. I mean, because when you go to the Masters, there's not that many. I mean, there's a ton of golf down there, but it's hard to get out anywhere. And everyone and if you can get on Palmetto, that's the one everyone wants to play. So that ends up being a pretty popular meeting spot that week.
Well, next year when we go, we're talking about little bolt on just to sort of gorge a little bit more on golf. I've been thinking Tobacco Road and Pinehurst too.
Absolutely, Tobacco Road's a must.
Is that good?
Oh, it's phenomenal. And when you go, if it's like the four of you, you can actually stay. There's a little cabin on property, so stay right on the property. And it's, you know, Mike Strantz, what he did there, it's art. And like art, it's not for everybody. You know, like if you look at a painting, someone might think that something's brilliant and someone might not get it. And it doesn't mean whatever. I mean, it's not for everyone. And some people come off it feeling kind of confused and whatever. But I just find it to be just so it's just rare to play so much golf and then to play something like you've never played before. And so Tobacco Road just totally put big wind in my sails. I absolutely love that place.
So I guess really we've kind of covered most bases, I think, Tom, in terms of the things we wanted to talk about. I guess course architecture is something that's come up a little bit throughout as we've talked. What do you think of the whole kind of distance debate right now? So I kind of read, you know, I'm just kind of close to finishing Anatomy of a Golf Course by Tom Doak. Really interesting book, really enjoyed that. I kind of, he's really honest, and it's quite refreshing to get to read kind of one of the more modern course architecture books. And I think with all the stuff around the sort of USGA and RNA distance report, all the discussions around kind of bifurcation and stuff, the game feels like it's at quite an interesting junction at the moment. And what the kind of leading course architects around the world do now, and the way the clubs respond, and the professional game is probably going to dictate the next 20, 30 years, right? So what's your sort of take on where that's going to go? What's your thoughts around the whole thing?
Wow, it's complicated, right? There's so many different competing interests. I don't see how bifurcation. I don't know if I see that happening. And personally, there's something about maybe it's very naive, but there's something about the idea that what a professional golfer is playing with is the same thing that I play with. That is kind of interesting and appealing. It's different than other sports. Well, hell, I don't play baseball or really. I guess basketball they play with the same stuff, but
I agree. It's a fair point. Like massive feeling that you tee it up on the same course using the
I
same
can play
equipment.
right. I can play the same tees with the same ball and the same stuff. That the Tiger did. Now, granted, I'm going to make. I'm not going to do what he did, but there's something about that connection, that fine line between. It isn't a very fine line, but there is that sensation and that thrill of like making a birdie and feeling like one of them, or like I am Tiger Woods, right? That, as we said back in the 90s, or 2000s, whatever. So, there's something. I'm not a huge fan of that. I like the idea of like everyone playing the same equipment. I think as well. I mean, there have to be some limits on equipment going forward. I mean, maybe if we kind of pause here, and this is like a good place to stop. I don't know about rolling it back. I think at the end of the day, this is bringing up the conversation around great architecture, right? So they didn't tear up Marion. Look what happened at Royal Melbourne. If you play tournaments on these great, thoughtful, golden age golf courses, the Bombers are not necessarily running away with it, and the scores aren't incredibly low. So I'm inclined to say let's play more interesting golf courses than what you necessarily. I mean, because forever the venues on the PGA Tour have been built to reward. They're built for bombers, and that's not a bad thing either. I mean, I have conflicting feelings about it as well because I like hitting it far. I think you should be rewarded for beating the hell out of it. Tom Morris loved hitting it as far as he could. Chicks dig the long ball. What are you gonna do? So
You're never going to get away from a difference in distance between players' abilities, are you? That's always going to exist in the game, but it has to find a way where it can offer the right risk reward relative to where you're trying to put it and be more positional. I think is what.
If you're more,
saying, right?
if the designs and the course that you're playing are more thoughtful and more challenging from a strategic point of view, that's what's going to level out the playing field more so than, okay, let's roll the ball back, and now Brooks Koepka can only hit it 290. Well, now Zach Blair can hit it only 240. Like, what the hell's the So, I don't see that as a great solution, and that's also this whole distance debate. This is for like 0.001% of the golf that's played in the world, and it's the golf that we watch, but I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of keep pushing tees back, and I don't really care if guys shoot 30 under either. Par is stupid. Par is just the way that people came up to make scorekeeping easier, right?
Old man par.
Old man par. I mean, it was just that, you're playing against old man par just as a way to like give you something to do because you didn't have a match.
Yeah, that was Bobby Jones's philosophy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just let's hell, more match play would solve the distance debate as well. No one would care. I don't know. Let them rip it, and I think though, if you play more thoughtful, interesting golf courses, that becomes less of an issue.
It was interesting. One of the last tournaments that we got to watch was the one down at Mexico, the WGC at Chapultepec. And when you scale it down for altitude, it only plays about 6,400, 6,500 yards, and they weren't ripping it up. They've got really tight fairways. They asked the question: Do you want to try and carry these trees? Do you want to do this? And they weren't absolutely ripping the course up, but even though it played comparatively small for what they're used to.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, I mean, that would be an example that's a course where the tightness of it sort of levels the playing field to some extent. And then there's other courses where you'd say, okay, by making it wider, as we say, width and angles, you're actually leveling the playing field, because you're giving some advantage to players who want to play sort of strategic spots, versus players who want to hit it as far as they can and find themselves in less strategic spots. So there's different ways to do it. And
that's just a question of great course design, isn't it? The great course designers always ask the question.
exactly, asking the questions, right? I mean, I was just writing about or 18 at national golf links, and the options that you have there, or like 5 at Crystal Downs, and it's this short par 4 where you look at the tee and you're like, I could hit 8 different clubs right here, and could make birdie with all of them, or could make 7 with all of them, and that's awesome. And the hole's 320 yards, so so to say that like it's all about distance, I mean, there's nothing more boring than driver and here comes the 3-wood, like it's so much more interesting on some of these more thoughtful shorter holes. So yeah, we just need good. It's all about the design, man.
Absolutely. Is there anywhere where you haven't played golf and you'd like to?
So I
could be anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I need to kind of get back to been to Australia and played some golf there, but didn't get to Royal Melbourne. It's Australia, New Zealand, like Tahiti and stuff. That would be nice. I don't know if there's a whole book in Down Under. Maybe.
I'm sure you can make one out.
Yeah, trust me.
Sounds like a 6-month trip.
I could figure it out. So that might be on the horizon. Yeah, that would be. I was looking at that today. It was someone asked me like, what of the top 100 in the world did you still want to play? And I went through the list, and the only ones left are in Asia, or in Australasia, if you will. So yeah, I guess I got to get over there.
But before we say goodbye to you, Tom, we got a couple of quick fire questions. If you would be
Let's
so
do
kind.
it. Quick fire.
Let's do it. English, Irish, or Welsh, or Scottish full breakfast?
For full breakfast?
Yeah.
I'm going to go, well, I got to say Irish. Just that was my first experience with the full
highly
Irish.
Controversial question you've just
despite
answered
the
there,
blood
Tom.
pudding and whatnot.
Was that with a Guinness?
It was for a while. That's probably why it's not anymore.
Favorite British Open rotor course?
Ooh, okay. Prestwick. Super fun.
Biggest hidden gem that you've played globally?
Global hidden gem. I'm gonna go with in Scotland. Oh no, in Ireland, Critch Island, the 9-holer in Donegal.
Score you're most proud of?
Ooh. I was pretty psyched to go around Gullen in 3 under, made 6 birdies. That was fun. Yeah, I like that one.
Good.
Impressive score.
Thank you.
Most overrated golf course?
I would say Turnberry before the renovations. So maybe that's a bit unfair. Because now I understand it's more dramatic than it was.
How about Walter Hagen or Bobby Jones?
Oh, I'm gonna go. Oh, Bobby Jones.
And in terms of best trip with friends, I'm pretty sure I know where this is going, but I'll put it to you anyway.
I'm gonna say Ireland, but there's something that Scotland really did. It depends. Okay, I just qualify. It's quick fire, but let me qualify it. So if you want to have fun and have the crack, right? Ireland, fun, etc. If you're a little more into the golf and the history, St. Andrew, go to St. Andrews or North Berwick or whatever. And and I say that because in Scotland, the advantage is so much golf without having to get back on the damn bus, right? Ireland, there's a lot of bus time. So, and if you're out there for the fun and you've got your cooler or whatever and you're fine. But I think now for me in my life, my golf trips, for my friends would probably be a little more suited to Scotland.
There was one trip in particular which I was certainly very jealous of, which was probably this time last year, Masters Week.
Yeah, we played Palmetto, went to the Masters. That was, get in the lottery for those practice round tickets. I mean, the rumor is I'm here in October. It's still a rumor, though.
Yeah.
But
They're going to be going on the black market, are they? Or are we going to be, or have they gone back into a ballot now in America? Have you got to reapply?
I figure they have to honor the tickets,
you think?
right, that you have.
Yeah.
But what was cool is, as soon as I heard those dates, I went on and booked some hotel rooms in Aiken, because the hotel rooms in Augusta were already like $1,000 a night or like $800 a night. So something's going on.
Oh, really?
That second week of October in Augusta. Somebody knows something.
So I think that's about all we got time for. Tom, I really appreciate, I'm sure we all do, like just giving of your time, like really enjoyed it. It's been fascinating kind of just kicking the shits about the game with you and kind of getting your perspective on things. And great to meet you as well.
Thank you.
And just before you go, Tom, have we got a date for the book?
Yeah, so it'll come out. The book comes out May of 2021. So this time next year, folks will be seeing a course called America out there. So check it out and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Coyne Writer for sure. That'd be awesome. And read the Golfer's Journal. So
Broken Tea Society. I think there's going to be two.
Recommend it.
Join the Broken Tea Society. Yeah,
it's saving me during quarantine.
It's must quarantine reading.
But it's been an absolute pleasure, Tom. Thank you so much for giving up your time to talk to us, and I'm sure our listeners are really appreciative of you taking time out. To
my
talk
pleasure,
to us today.
guys. Thanks so much for the invite, Tom, Cal, Sam. Keep it real, and hopefully we get to tee it up soon.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll do it.
All the best.
All right, be well.
Thanks, Tom. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Watch this.